Hi guys, and this is a video on Introduction to Quadratic Functions. So in the past we've done just linear functions. Okay, so linear means that it's a straight line. So those are in this form, y equals mx plus b, right? And it's going to look, the line can look a lot of different ways, but it's going to be a straight line, okay? So that is linear. Today we're going to talk about quadratics. Okay, quadratics are written like this. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, if you did not have the ax squared, you would have a linear function, correct? But now because we've got this squared, that tells you it's a quadratic. Okay, so in the warm-up we did something fairly simple. We did y equals x squared, right? So if you have your axis here, and if I made a table, x and y, right, if x is 1, then y is 1. If x is 2, y is 4. If x is negative 1, it's still 1. And if it's negative 2, it's still 4. And then, of course, if it's 0, it's 0. All right, so if you plot those points, you should come up with something that is symmetric, okay, and opens upward. Okay, so it should look something like this. Okay, this is called a parabola. Oh, can't see nothing. Parabola. Okay, that's called a parabola. A parabola is what any quadratic is going to look like. So if it is a quadratic, it will be a parabola. Okay, so let's just talk about a couple of things about the parabola. Okay, so here I have my parabola. Right, so let's talk about a couple things. You notice that it's going in an upward direction. It has a vertex, right? That's the point in which it cannot go down any further. All right, so it's going down, and then once it hits that point, it goes back up. Okay, so the point, this would be the vertex. All right, the other thing we talked about is the axis of symmetry. Think about this parabola. You could fold it in half, and it would match up perfectly. So our line of symmetry is going through there. So if you folded it on that line, okay, so this is the axis of symmetry. Okay, and the axis of symmetry always goes through the vertex, right, because it's passing right through here. Okay, so always through vertex. Alright, so let's talk about some other stuff. Alright, so here's example number 6. My graph looks similar to it. Alright, so the first thing it's asking you for is it's asking you for the vertex. Remember, the vertex is this point right there. Okay, so if you're looking at your graph, that point is 2, 0. And if you look at the parabola, is that a minimum point or is it a maximum point? Okay, this is minimum because it can only go up. Okay, so this is a minimum. Alright, second thing, we want to know what A is, what B is, and what C is. Right, remember our A is the number next to the X. If there's nothing there, it's 1. Our B is the number next to this X, so negative 4. And our C, is this number, so this would be 4. Alright, then it wants to know the axis of symmetry. Alright, we're going to use the formula here in a bit, but if you were to divide this, right, remember I said the axis of symmetry always goes through the vertex. So this equation is actually x equals 2, which is the same as the x-coordinate of the vertex because it goes through that point at x. Right, last thing is domain and range. Okay, remember domain is all x values. So since the parabola keeps on opening and it never goes over itself, the domain is all real numbers. Okay? And then the range is this right here. That's my minimum point. Okay? So that means that y is greater than or equal to 0. And if you notice, this 0 right here matches this one. Alright, let's try another one. Alright, so here's our next one. We've got y is equal to negative x, I forgot the squared, negative x squared plus 2x plus 1. Alright, so first thing is the vertex. Okay, remember the vertex is always the minimum or maximum point. So the vertex is actually a maximum. And when you look at those points, you get 1 and 2. Alright, second part you're going to look for your A, your B, and your C. Okay, your A, right, if there's nothing here, this is a 1, so A is negative 1, B is this number, 2, and C is this number, 1. Alright, now they're asking for axis of symmetry. And remember, when you're graphing, it's just the line that goes through the vertex. Okay, and if it's vertical, it's always going to be x equals. So x is equal to, it goes through the x-axis at 1. So x equals 1. And again, this is the same as this x value right here. Right? And then we've got our domain and our range. Alright, so our domain for this is also going to be all real numbers because it opens downward forever and ever, so x can be anything at this point. And our range, remember, is the same as our y value. So y is less than or equal to 2. Alright, so that's looking with the graphs. So let's go to the back page and we'll go through these. Alright, so when you get a quadratic function, I want you to think to yourself, you know it's a quadratic because of the x squared, okay? Now the first thing I want you to do, because we don't have a graph here, so you can't see the vertex by looking at it, and you can't always graph them because it's always not going to be as simple as that. So we're going to list our A, our B, and our C. Okay, so you're just going to put this right into the equation. Our A is 1, our B is 4, and our C, remember you're going to carry that negative 9 with you, so the C is negative 9. Alright, so now we're going to find the axis of symmetry. Okay, there's a formula for that, and this is what it is. It's x, let me change this. So the axis of symmetry is x equals negative b divided by 2a. So you look up at these values right here, and all we're going to do is plug it in. So x is equal to negative b means the opposite of b, so it's negative 4 divided by 2 times 1. That gives us negative 4 divided by 2. So x would be negative 2. Alright, so this is the axis of symmetry. And remember I said the axis of symmetry always goes through the vertex. So that means that this is the x-coordinate of our vertex. So in order to find the y-coordinate, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the equation. Okay, if we know the x and we want to find the y, all we're going to do is we're going to take that x and we're going to plug it in. So we have y equals negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 minus 9. Okay, so negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 minus 9. So your y is equal to negative 13. Alright, so that means that your vertex, right, your vertex is a point, is -2, -13. Okay? And then it's asking you if it's a min or a max. So when you look at this, the way that you know that, if you look at your A term, if your A is positive, it opens up. And if it opens up, that means that it is a minimum. All right, let's try number 9. All right, so here we go. We know it's a quadratic because of the squared right there. All right, so all we're going to do first, just like the other question, we're going to do our A, our B, and our C. All right, so our A is 1, our B is -14, and our C is 13. All right, so once you get that, we're going to do the axis of symmetry. Remember that formula is x equals -b divided by 2a. All right, so you're going to look up here and take those numbers and plug it in. So we have x equals the opposite of b. So b is -14, so the opposite of that is +14. And then we have 2 times a. So that's x is equal to 14 divided by 2. So your x equals 7. So that means your vertical line goes through 7. All right, so remember what I said. The axis of symmetry always goes through the vertex. So that means that this x value is the coordinate for the x value of the vertex. All right, so now we're going to take it and we're going to plug it in. So here's our equation again. All right, so we're just going to take 7 and we're going to plug it in. So we have y equals 7 squared minus 14 times 7 plus 13. 7 squared is 49 minus 98 plus 13. And if you do that, you get -36. Right, so that means that your vertex is 7, -36. All right, so now we want to know min or max. So remember, you look at your A. Okay, so A is positive, so it opens up. So that means it's going to look like this. So if it opens up, it has a minimum. All right, number 10. All right, here we go, number 10. If you notice, all we're doing is a systematic process. So the first thing I want you to do, remember, is to find your A, your B, and your C. All right, so A is 1, but I don't see an X there. So that means my B is 0, because 0 times X is 0, goes away, and my C is 2. All right, so I have my 3 variables. Now I'm going to find the axis of symmetry. That is x equals -b divided by 2a. And you guys really need to write that formula down every time because it will ingrain it in your brain, okay? So the opposite of b is 0. The opposite of 0 is just 0. 2 times a is just 2. Okay, now 0 divided by any number is going to be 0. So x is equal to 0. Okay? So now we have our x value of our vertex. And remember, the vertex always goes through the axis of symmetry, so we're going to take this number and we're going to plug it back into our equation to solve for y. So we get y equals 0 squared plus 2. So y would have to be equal to 2. So our vertex is 0, 2. Right? Then I want you guys to think about something. If you don't have a b, is your axis of symmetry always going to be x equals 0? Think about it, okay? All right, so let's look at our a. So a is positive. So that means that it opens up like this. So it's going to have a minimum. So that one is also minimum. All right, on to number 11. All right, we got y equals negative x squared plus 5x plus 6. So again, doing the same steps, A, B, and C. All right, our A is actually negative 1, because the 1's not there, but it means negative 1. Our B is 5, and our C is 6. Right, now we're going to find our axis of symmetry, which is equal to x is equal to negative b divided by 2a. All right, so negative b means the opposite of b, so it's negative 5 divided by 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So we know a negative by a negative gives you a positive, so let's just turn this to a decimal. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So x equals 2.5. Right, so there's our x value of our vertex. All right, so we're going to take this and we're going to plug it in. So we're going to plug it into y equals negative x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay, so when you're looking at this and you see this negative x squared, it means you're going to square x and then you're going to take the opposite of it. Okay, so that means it's going to look like this. Negative, then my x squared is 2.5, and I'm going to square that whole thing, plus 5 times 2.5. I'm going to run out of room. Oh. Give me a second. Just going to rewrite it. Okay, so this is negative. Okay, so you're going to square the quantity 2.5 first and then take its negative. Then you do 5 times. Alright, so we're going to take 5 times 2.5 and then we're going to add 6. Alright, so we're going to take the negative of 2.5 squared is 6.25. 5 times 2.5 excuse me, okay, is 12.5, and then we're going to add 6, so this becomes negative 6.25 plus 12.5 plus 6. So that means that y is equal to 12.25. Right, so our vertex then is 2.5 and 12.25. Alright, and our A is negative in this one. Right, see this? A is negative. So that means it's going to open in a downward direction, and that point is called its max. Okay, go ahead and try number 12, pause it, and then you can check if you need to come back. Alright, so if you guys notice, the first thing I did is I took this equation and I rearranged it so that my x squared was first, my x was second, and then my constant was third. It just helps you keep track of it. Alright, so my A is negative 2, B is 4, and C is 6.5. When I plug all that in, you should have gotten x equals 1. Right, then you take your x equals 1 and you plug it back into your equation to get your y. Right? So when you get that, you should get 8.5. So that means our vertex is 1 and 8.5. And because A is negative, that means that it's opening in a downward direction, so therefore it is a maximum. Alright, so just a real quick review. Okay, so standard form of a quadratic is, ax squared plus bx plus c. And we'll talk about what the a, b, and c mean in the next couple days. All right. The vertex defines the min or the max, depending. Okay, and then the axis of symmetry is always going to be that line that splits it in the middle. So it's going to be x equals something, right? Because your parabola is going to either look like this or your parabola is going to look like that. So if it opens up, this gives you a min, and if it opens down, it gives you a max, right? Then your axis of symmetry always goes through the vertex, no matter what direction it's going. All right, so work on your homework. If you have any questions, come in and ask me or post something on Edmodo. You guys have a good night.